symposium and conferences on these subjects. Over to our next speaker, Srimati Rekha Sharma, the chairperson of National Commission for Women. She is an alumna of the prestigious DAV College, Dehradun, Uttarakhand. A graduate in political science, history, and English literature, she has been a member of the commission since August 2015. Since her joining the commission, she has been instrumental in preserving the interests of those women who have no voice in the society. Before joining the commission, Srimati Sharma was actively associated with the civil society organization in different capacities as a member of the District Consumer and Redressal Forum, Haryana. Recently, National Commission for Women, in association with the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises and Office of Development, commissioned or organized a consultation on effective methods to assist women-led enterprises. Moderator for today's webinar is Dr. Puneet, Associate Professor, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. Before joining JNU, Professor Puneet was associated with ILA as Assistant Professor. Your active participation is very important throughout the session. Right now, I have everyone on mute to avoid background noises and protect connectivity. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your WebEx control panel with your name and designation to the host only. We have time for the questions at the end. Thank you now, and the moderator will take over the charge of the discussion. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you, Nima, for the kind introduction, and very good evening to you all. Honorable Justice Madam Ima Kohli, Honorable Chairperson of the National Commission for Women, Madam Rekha Sharma, dear friends. I'm really glad to be part of this webinar. I thank the organizers for this opportunity. I must compliment at the outset the ILA Alumni Association for starting this webinar series and the broad team of COVID-19 and the law to discuss the legal challenges thrown up by the pandemic and the nationwide lockdown imposed to contain it. As you all know, the COVID-19 crisis has struck the humankind in an unprecedented way. It has almost changed the world with a blink of an eye. The unprecedented humanitarian crisis that has been created by the pandemic should have, ideally speaking, made the humankind more humble and compassionate towards each other and towards the nature. With much needed time it provided for self-reflection, it should have made us overcome our egos and evil tendencies. But unfortunately, it does not seem to be the case. It was said, every human being is capable of doing justice, but he or she is more inclined to do injustice. Even during this period of crisis, which created an existential threat for the humankind, some people are not able to overcome their inclination. That's why their evil tendencies are still the same. We have witnessed, heard of, or read about many such things. Initially, we have heard about hoardings, black marketing, and price rise of essential commodities during the lockdown, and also witnessed spread of racism and communalism in different parts of the world. Later, we had learnt about many more problems. There has been significant increase in cybercrimes against women during the lockdown. As per the report of the Traffic, a wildlife trade monitoring group, there has been a significant increase in poaching in India. It is almost doubled during the first 2 months of lockdown as per the report. And astonishingly, there has also been a surge in the number of domestic violence cases in India and other parts of the world. During the early days of COVID-19, when lockdown was being contemplated, a colleague of mine had suggested that probably the number of domestic violence cases would go up during the lockdown. Frankly speaking, I was surprised and I could not believe it. Now, looking at all the statistics of domestic violence around the world, including in India, I must admit that I was entirely wrong. Domestic violence, which has always been one of the serious issues, has been increasing during the pandemic. Lack of awareness and non-reporting or under-reporting of cases have been the two major obstacles in combating the evil. During this period, even the forums which were otherwise accessible for the redressal of grievances have also become inaccessible to violence. Some of these issues have been particularly taken note of by the High Court of Jammu and Kashmir and High Court of Delhi, which have issued certain directions in the matter. How to reach out to the victims of domestic violence in this hour of crisis, what remedies can be afforded to them within the framework of the existing laws, and whether those remedies are adequate even during this hour of crisis are some of the important questions that we will be discussing today with our distinguished panelist. Ms. Nima has already introduced our distinguished panelist. Let me add that both of them are aiding organizations which have taken many proactive measures to reach out to the victims of domestic violence in this hour of crisis. Justice Madam Ima Kohli is the Executive Chairperson of the Delhi State Legal Services Authority, and Madam Rekha Sharma is the Chairperson of the National Commission for Women. In this interaction, we would get to know the ground realities from them. Madam Ima Kohli and Madam Rekha Sharma, I once again welcome you both to this panel discussion. Before beginning, let me briefly tell you about the format. I have a couple of common questions to both of you and few specific to each of you. Once we are done with these questions, we will take certain questions from the participants. Let me, if the format is clear, then let me begin by asking you both one of the important questions that comes to my mind. That during the early days of COVID-19, when the nationwide lockdown was announced, have you anticipated in your organizations about the possible spike in the number of cases of domestic violence? If so, what actually were the reasons to think so? I would request Madam Ima Kohli to respond to this question first, and then I would request Madam Rekha Sharma to answer that.
Let me start by thanking the ILI alumni for hosting this event and having two co-panelists on it, Ms. Sharma and myself, both focusing on women and their needs in different aspects and walks of life. Dr. Puneet, in this period of the COVID-19 lockdown, Delhi Legal Services Authority had anticipated that there would be a possible spike in the cases of domestic violence. And the reasons for that are not far to see. We all know that the European countries were affected with the COVID-19 pandemic much before it spread to India. And the statistics in Europe would show that the number of calls that were received by helplines dedicated to domestic violence had increased by about 30 to 35%. So this itself was an indication to us that there could be a steep rise in the cases of domestic violence in India during the lockdown phase. Due to the overloaded health system, the shortage of medicines, the relocation of government resources and disruption to the supply chain caused due to the COVID pandemic, women have really been the worst sufferers. The reasons for that are not far to see. In this period, when people were confined within their homes, they were confronted with insecurities relating to their jobs, uncertainties over their salaries, they faced forced isolation and mounting emotional crisis. This was the time when the women in the house were having to work doubly hard, not only to keep the household running as usual, but also to attend to senior citizens in the home, to children who had stopped attending schools that had shut down, to husbands who had stopped going to work in this period, and net, everybody was confined within the house. All this without the assistance of any full-time or part-time helps. So women have faced barriers steeped in gender-biased discrimination, in restricted freedom of movement in COVID-19 pandemic, lack of funds, lack of options to take care of the children and their own health. This violence against women has been aptly described by the UN Executive Director, Ms. Nikua, as the shadow pandemic. And I think that could be not better put. So that would be my response to your first question.
Thank you, Madam. It's over to Madam Rekha Sharma.
Yeah, good evening to everyone and good evening, Ms. Ima. First of all, let me tell you that a few days back, only before this lockdown started, we had a meeting on women in disaster. And we all know that any disaster happen anywhere in the world, any pandemic or any natural disaster happens, women are the first target of violence, whether at home or in society. They are the most sufferer because of many things, not only about gender, because of their how they are earning, their earning capabilities, their finances and everything. So we knew that this thing will happen, and the domestic violence will increase. And as Ms. Hima also suggested that in Europe we had seen that number of domestic violence cases were increasing before us. We were alert that this thing will happen, but we didn't know that it will be like doubling the number which we were receiving beforehand also. Let me also tell you, domestic violence cases are always number one in NCW, whereas the numbers are concerned. We have different categories, but domestic violence cases are the most of the cases we receive are domestic violence. Otherwise also, but during the lockdown, it has increased, and it as Justice Hima suggested that because women were locked down with their perpetrators, and they were unable to go out. They were unable to take help from usual sources where they used to reach out, like police, their parents, their friends. They were not being able to talk to their friends, even staying in one home where the homes are not more than one room in many cases. They were unable to talk on phone also. Because of that, the number of cases to NCW increased because they were nowhere to go. We started a WhatsApp number where women can't talk. They can, message to others. So that's why we started this WhatsApp number. And the moment we started WhatsApp number, we saw the numbers are coming, like they were flooding. The cases were flooding. So resources and more helplines were needed. This time we saw that even police now, I had a meeting with DGPs all around the nation, and they were happy that number has decreased. But I would like to tell them that it was not because the cases were less, it was because women were not being able to reach to the police. And they never had a system where they can, ping them, they can message them. So that's why the number they were showing were less. But yes, we were aware that numbers will increase, and within a week or so, we were ready to, offer our 24/7 helpline.
Over to you, Dr. Hakmi.
Hello. Hello. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, madam. We got to know that both the organizations, in a way, have anticipated about the possible spike much before the lockdown was officially announced. Madam, my next question, which is also common to both of you, is this. Both Delhi State Legal Services Authority and the NCW have always been receiving certain complaints of domestic violence. When did you actually see the spike in the number of cases that are reported to your organization? Is it during the early days of lockdown or sometimes later? And roughly the percentage of increase during the period of lockdown of these cases of domestic violence? Yes.
Okay, starting with Delhi, since I'm
Yes,
representing
madam.
Delhi
Yeah.
Legal Services Authority, I'll leave the figures to Ms. Sharma because pan India, she would have a better idea. The spike in number of cases of domestic violence that were reported in this was seen in the beginning of May 2020, insofar as we are concerned. So, though, as I said, the exact percentage of the increase would not be readily available with me and has yet to be assessed after seeing the whole figures, fact remains that in the Indian society, victims of domestic violence are quite reluctant ordinarily to seek help from many quarters, much less from state authorities or the police. Mr. Sharma just highlighted that too. In fact, they are dissuaded from seeking assistance on the plea that the family honor would be at stake. Sad to say, but Delhi is the capital of the country, but it is ranking third, which is only behind, as I understand, Uttarakhand and Haryana when it comes to cases of documented domestic violence, starting from the lockdown phase in the end of March to the middle of May 2020. In all, about 255 cases relating to domestic violence have been reported during the lockdown. Out of this, 125 cases were reported through DCW, and DLSA steps in thereafter to take steps to aid and assist the victim. About 100 plus cases were received on toll-free helpline numbers that are available by DLSA, as also DCW. And the remaining cases were identified through various other methods that we had adopted, which I'll share with you in due course. Over to Ms. Chandra.
Yeah, so after first week of lockdown, when we saw the numbers, we saw that it was rising steeply. So during the lockdown, if I say from March 21st to June 7th, we got number of cases were 1665. Most of the cases came from UP. Delhi was number 2. And if we see from January, February to March 21st, in similar period, we received 853 cases. So you can see that it is almost double, the figure is almost double. And during that period only, during first week, we started this WhatsApp number. And let me tell you, when we started, it was a lockdown and we couldn't go out and start a new number. So from home only we started this number, which is 72177357372. And in 3 days, it got blocked with the number of requests for help, because it was flooded with the numbers of requests. So we had to convert it into a business number. Only then we could work on it, and when that took another 1 week. So in that 1 week, we saw that a number of calls we were receiving. So I had to make one group of people who were working 24/7, and they were receiving online complaints and working with the police, closely with the police, and also district legal authorities. And let me tell you, in this whole period, district legal authorities were quite helpful, and they were also, they themselves told us that they also were flooded with these kinds of complaints and help requests. But since we in India, women are not being able to go out, as Justice only said, that firstly, they don't even know that they are the victims. They are so used to taking domestic violence. But during the pandemic, we saw that these numbers are increasing because they were unable to share with others. And only because they are not being able to share, they could come out and say that we are the sufferer from so many years. They were not the fresh sufferers. They were already sufferers before the lockdown. But now they have started raising their voice because they were unable to take it because of the lockdown.
Okay, thank you, madam. My third question is, of course, Madam Ima Kohli also mentioned about the difficulties as to why many women do not come forward and register cases. And we all know that when it comes to protecting women from domestic violence, lack of awareness, which Madam Rekha Sharma also highlighted, and non-reporting or under-reporting of cases have been the two major obstacles, and that used to be the scenario even before the pandemic. It seems to be even more difficult to surmount those obstacles during the pandemic. What measures or steps are taken by both Delhi State Legal Services Authority and the National Commission for Women to create awareness and to ensure access to legal remedies to the victims of domestic violence during this period of pandemic, particularly keeping in view the kind of difficulties that it has created for women to come out and then report such cases of violence?
So, Professor Puneet, you rightly said that during this period, everyone had to remain indoors, and normal access to legal remedies was seriously curtailed. So what did DLSA do? We started by examining ways and means to reach at the doorstep of the victim and ensure that last mile connectivity for legal aid. The first thing that DLSA did was to ensure that all the offices in all the 11 districts of Delhi are open throughout the lockdown period. Next, the DLSA set up help desks at food relief centers that were established by the state government, at night shelters, at police stations, at CAW cells and all other places of public outreach which would cater to the women facing domestic violence. So these help desks that were set up are manned by legal aid lawyers who offer counseling and also offer legal aid on the spot. Video counseling is also an option that has been available at the Sakhi Center for victims of domestic violence. For spreading awareness, efforts have been made by DLSA to conduct online programs during the lockdown for tackling cases of domestic violence in the lockdown. All stakeholders have been sensitized to ensure that appropriate legal aid is available and counseling can be provided to victims of domestic violence. DLSA has a dedicated toll-free helpline number 1516, which has remained in place throughout. But besides that helpline, just as NCW has established another helpline, we have established a WhatsApp helpline, which is 966-799-2802. That was created specifically for victims of domestic violence so that even a missed call would be enough ground for us to reach out to them. So an SMS or a WhatsApp message can also be sent for help. The idea behind it is that if the woman who gives a missed call thinks that she's in such a state that within the four corners of her house, she can actually not vocalize her fear, then we must reach out to her on the basis of that missed call and see what best we can do. But it is not as if DLSA will rush into the house of the victim to make her position more precarious or more vulnerable. Efforts are to make sure that we work around it very cautiously without causing any trauma to the victim or aggravating her situation. So during this lockdown, I must share with you, DLSA has also launched the Vidhik Seva mobile app, which provides legal aid to victims by simply clicking on their mobile phone. We have given wide publicity to this app through digital and print media. So the moment any complaint is made, the idea is that the machinery should be set into motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Madam Rekha Sharma, what are the initiatives taken by your organizations?
So first of all, we gave advertisement throughout this lockdown period in Doordarshan during Ramayan period, where most of the families used to see those Ramayan and Mahabharata. So both the before these serials used to start, our advertisement used to come. We had a campaign on social media and media. Social media, we also started Facebook live chats where I myself personally took part with other specialists, other gender specialists who used to talk about domestic violence. So these chats were regular. We had webinars on these on domestic violence. We also had meetings with the state commissions and told them to report to us how many cases in their district they are receiving. We told them to reach out to women in shelter homes. We told them to reach out to women in one-stop centers and see if one-stop centers are working properly. We have also prepared a performer for One Stop Center where they will be reporting us how many cases they have received during the lockdown. We gave the counseling. Our counselor was available 24/7 because we saw that not many women wanted help from police. So when they used to complain and we used to ask what is their plea, what they want. So they used to say, no, we don't want police to come to our place because they never wanted to break their relationship with the husband. So counseling was the best second thing which we could, give them, not only to the women but to the husbands also, because they never wanted to break their families. So husbands need to understand how to behave. So they also needed counseling. So our counselor was there, and in fact, with this, within this period only, we have got an idea of a counseling helpline. Now we are going to start, and we are working for mental health counseling all over the country. We are starting, and because mental health we had seen really suffered in this period. Women were not only bogged down with the work, household work, but with the mental tension also. Not only their own tension, but because of children's tension, because of their husband not earning properly, the money is not coming home. So, and India, not many women talk about mental tension. And because of that, also, we have seen the behavior changes in the women also. So we have started now talking about this helpline, and very soon we'll be starting this.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. As regards some of the measures that, you also, both of you have pointed out that you have started with mobile apps and helpline numbers. And as you said earlier, that most of the cases that you have received also is through the mobile. But in India, we have a peculiar problem. There are victims from the underprivileged background who are digitally divided and do not have the facility of telephone, much less the smartphone, to use the mobile apps or helpline numbers that are provided. Are there any special measures taken to ensure that even those victims of underprivileged also get access to these forums for seeking redressal of their grievances or availing counseling facilities or so?
That's a wonderful question that you've posed, Professor Puneet. And I must say that measures have been taken by DLSA to reach out to victims of domestic violence from those within the underprivileged section of society. So the question is, what would they do if they do not possess a mobile phone or and still they want to report a case of domestic violence? We thought about it and racked our brains and came up with an idea that we must zero in on those agencies who would be available even during the lockdown phase for the women to reach out to. And what were those agencies? We looked at Anganwadi workers who work at the grassroots level and have a fair feel of the neighborhood and can reach out to those people who are in need. We reached out to the mother dairy booths in Delhi because they also cater to essential services, fruits, vegetables, milk, etc., and were open 24/7. The management of mother dairy was roped in with a request to sensitize the booth managers to report cases of domestic violence in their locality, to display these various circulars and notices we had issued, which contained the helpline number that was a toll-free helpline number in their locality. Those pamphlets were also posted there. Then we reached out to the chemists and the pharmacists in all over the city that also remained open during the lockdown period, being an essential service. The chemist shops were sensitized to report any case of domestic violence that came to their notice to DLSA. They were also distributed pamphlets in the shops for them to display it, containing the DLSA helpline number. Again, the beat constables of each area were sensitized and helpline numbers were shared with them so that if they see a case and the lady doesn't want to go to the police, that number would be accessible to them for reaching out to us. That's how we worked it out.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Madam Rekha Sharma, what are the measures that NCW has taken to reach out to the victims of underprivileged sections?
First of all, let me start with the thing that these victims from underprivileged section themselves don't know that they are victims in most of the cases. And it is very difficult to reach out when victim doesn't know that they are victim and they don't even report such cases. I can say that in many cases it is like Stockholm syndrome, where victim is in love with they think that they are used to having. They saw their mothers get beaten up by their father. They saw their brothers beating up sisters. They saw all their life that this is normal. That for them this is normal. And if even the neighbors come and start, they try to help. They say that don't intervene. This is our personal thing. But still, we started working during the lockdown. Before lockdown, we reach by taking these legal awareness campaigns in all the districts through state commissions. But during the lockdown, we were not being able to reach them through state commissions also, and these programs were also halted, and we were not having these legal awareness programs. But then we started working with NGOs, and let me tell you, many NGOs came forward during this lockdown and were doing wonderful jobs in reporting There were a red dot. There is a red dot campaign which happened like women has to put red dot on their hand and show it, flash it in the public and show that she's been victim of. But again, these campaigns were not being able to reach. But yes, few of the NGOs which were working in these neighborhoods were able to help. But I again will say that the number of cases we wanted to help were not being able to help because of the lockdown. We were not being able to reach at many places. Not many agencies were working during the lockdown, and that's why we couldn't reach on the ground. Even when we were talking to the police, they were all overburdened with other works. So they were also not being able to reach out properly.
Okay. Thank you, madam. Perhaps I understand that we might have to first begin with creating awareness as far as victims from the underprivileged background is concerned. My next question also is common to both of you, and it is somewhat connected to what I asked before. It is about, there is some perception that DV, the domestic violence as a phenomena, is restricted to a particular strata of society. That mostly the middle class people who make use of it. Is it so, or does both State Legal Services Authority as well as NCW get cases from all sections of the society? Either before the pandemic or during the pandemic? It is something in general that we are more interested to know.
Professor Puneet, as far as domestic violence is concerned, let us be candid. It is not restricted to any particular strata of society. Be it the wealthy, be it the lower middle class, the upper middle class, or the underprivileged, the phenomena has been noticed across all strata of society. Not just those living on the fringe of the society, but DLSA has been receiving calls from professionally competent, qualified women who have been victims of domestic violence. The perpetrators being their abusive husbands or their partners in shared households. So it is, you can't carve it out. It is no, money doesn't count. It's not the professional competence of the woman. She could be weak financially. She could be strong financially, surprisingly. In today's day and time, sad to say that women are still facing this kind of abuse across the board. And those, in fact, who are well off, who are financially strong, are more reluctant to step out because of the shame attached to it. Those who are in that strata of a class who are the daily wage workers, the maids, and such like, who are having to step out of their houses and get exposed being unskilled workers, they are also facing a brunt because finances are also not in their favor. They don't have a backup system. They don't have a support system. They don't know who to go to. Many of them are living in cities which are not theirs. They have traveled from other parts to be in those cities just to eke out a living. So their hardship is much more. They are sufferers of all kinds. And as it was pointed out by the chairperson NCW, they don't even know whether they should actually speak out about this because it is supposed to be expected as a normal routine that along with the 2 meals that the woman gets, she's also getting a thrashing. That's how sad it is.
Yes. Okay. That's a very sad state of affairs. Madam Rekha Sharma, do you also get in your organizations cases from all strata of society? What is because NCW is an organization that gets cases from all over the country. So what have been the experiences at the NCW as regards different strata of the society?
Absolutely right. I think Justice has told us that yes, we are getting cases from all strata of life, all strata of society. And as she said that we are, in society, we are used to seeing that domestic violence is one of the thing which is part of life. Women are thinking, even the educated women. Let me tell you, even at the lower strata and the upper strata still talk about it, but the middle class is burdened with the society, what society will say. लोग क्या कहेंगे? ये जो mindset है, it has made them I can say the slaves of men who are only thinking of the society and not thinking of themselves. If domestic violence happens with the lower strata women, she will come out and shout and abuse the man. We all see that they go out, abuse, shout for help. But if you see a woman who is educated and is being trashed by the husband, she will go out with all makeup on, and if somebody will ask what happened, she will say, I slipped down, or something happened, or like I got hurt by. She will never say that my husband has beaten me up, or I've received this trashing from my parents or somebody. She will always cover up. She will say that what office people will say, what my society will say. They have so many things to explain to the society, but for themselves they don't have any. Even an educated woman who is earning her own money, I always tell these girls that before marrying you must earn your own money. With earning, yes, these things are less, but we have seen that even women who are earning, they come to me and they will say that I'm a doctorate, I've done PhD, I have done this, but see, I don't want to leave my husband. He thrashes me, he's seeing other women, he is cheating me, but I don't leave, man. I don't want to leave him. Can you please return my husband back to me? That is something which is astonishing. Like, women still want to stay with a cheater. They are earning more than their husband. They are looking after their children. They are looking after their education. Still, they want their husband with them. So this mindset we need to change in the society, where we can, we should tell our daughters, and the change has to come from the family. Change has to come from parents, where they can say that, they should say that this is your home. If something happens in your marriage, you should come back to us. Whereas in India, we say that एक बार शादी हो गया तो वापस नहीं आना, ये घर तुम्हारा नहीं है. Till we change that mindset, I think women will take this beating for lifelong.
Thank you, madam. And now I have a couple of specific questions to each of you. Let me begin with Madam Hima Kohli. Madam, once the complaint or any information regarding domestic violence is received by the State Legal Services Authority, what is the procedure that is actually followed? How does the DALSA reach out to the victims? And has the lockdown particularly impacted the efficacy of DALSA in reaching out to the victims and handling the cases of domestic violence? And what are the remedies or relief that the DALSA can offer to the victims of domestic violence who approaches you for help?
See, as far as the question of reaching out to victims in the domestic for domestic violence in the lockdown period is concerned, I've just shared with you how we went about it, and to the best of our ability did what we thought we could reach out. Now, what is the next step? The second step as a follow-up, then what would we do when we get a complaint? So DLSA has created a pool of counselors who have been picked up from the various district courts, state mediation centers, as also counselors who are attached to family courts across Delhi, so that they would be the ones who can be interacting with the victim on receiving a complaint. We have appointed a nodal officer. Our member secretary, Mr. Kavaljeet Arora, has appointed a nodal officer who, on receiving a complaint, marks it to any of these counselors. The counselors go in for tele-counseling sessions with the victim, and thereafter, if the tele-counseling fails, and that the next step is that we have to redress the grievance of the victim. And by the way, when I talk of tele-counseling, it is not necessarily confined to the victim. If the abuser is ready and willing to come on board, the tele-counseling can also include the abuser. Coming next to the legal remedy that is possible, as I said, if the tele-counseling fails or there is no remedy available, in those circumstances, DLSA appoints a legal aid counsel who, after interacting with the victim, can file an application or a petition in court under the relevant provisions of law. We also have a Sampark scheme, which has been floated, where on the police station receiving a complaint, the legal aid counsel is contacted, and a call is made to the legal aid counsel for providing legal aid. The list of roster panel of the legal aid advocates has been provided by DLSA to
Hello.
She lost the
Ma'am,
connection.
yeah, we lost the connection.
I guess we lost the connection. We'll get back to Namit. By then, Punitha, you can also.
Yeah. Okay. Now we'll wait for them to join. Meanwhile, Madam, my question to this is to Madam Rekha Sharma. How does the NCW deal with the cases it receives? Has the lockdown impacted the NCW too, its efficacy to reach out to the victims? And generally, you also work in coordination with various departments, particularly police and other state machineries. Do they treat cases of domestic violence as non-priority during this period of pandemic? Earlier, you have also mentioned about police not taking domestic violence cases so seriously because there are many other things to do. So, what are the experience of dealing with other state machineries during this period of lockdown, madam?
During the lockdown, we were active from day one. We were working from home, but everybody was working. And if you see what all NCW has done during the lockdown, there's a list of things we did for migrant worker women, for other things, law reviews, and many such things we have done. Even we have done help to elderly people, which is not our mandate. We reach to elderly people, and people used to, request us to help their parents in different cities to provide them medicines, health services, and we help them also. During the lockdown, police was active with us. Wherever we reached them for help to women, they could help us. But on their own, they were not receiving. That's what I told you. That all the states, they told us that they were not receiving as many complaints as they were receiving earlier. So that was because the mechanism was not there with them. Women were unable to walk to the police station. That's why they couldn't report to the police. But when we reached out, and police was, I think, more effective than earlier. They were helping better during the lockdown because earlier we used to have grudges against police that they are not listening to the women when they walk to them and want to do an FIR against their against the husband or somebody in the family. They used to ask hundred of questions to these women. But during the lockdown, when we reached out, and even during night when my people were calling them, they were receiving calls, and that's why we are now continuing with this helpline number, WhatsApp number, because we have seen, rather than working in the files and writing to them emails, a phone call is better. And this system now we are taking forever. Now we will be working through phone only. And my office is also used to calling now SSP or even DGPs straight away. A small counselor, she calls straight away to DGP or DSP or DYSP, and they take the calls. And they have also now, I think, realized how we should work on phone or online. And when we took this DGP's meeting online, all the states except one joined this. Whereas we were thinking maybe not many DGPs will be able to come because of the lockdown, but because this issue was serious, and they came on board and they all joined this meeting. And we could, sensitize them that after the lockdown, because women were not being able to come during lockdown, the number of cases will increase after the lockdown. They will now walk out to them, and they will do FIR, and they should be ready to listen to them, and they should be ready with all those facilities to these women, uh, and even the counseling they should provide to these women now. And they were all saying that yes, we are now creating facilities for women who can come and tell us whatever they want. And one officer from Haryana, she said that yes, we are aware that women couldn't reach us during the lockdown, and number of cases will increase, and they were ready to handle those cases.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. You send me on WhatsApp. Fine. Thank you, madam. I think now we have got Madam Ima Kohli back on screen. Madam, you are saying something. Meanwhile, we lost your connection. Would you like to add something more?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I'll just complete what I was saying. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Well,
madam.
there was some.
Yes,
So I
ma'am.
was talking about the follow-up steps. I was telling you that we have a pool of counselors who are picked up from the mediation centers of various district courts, as also from the counselors in the family courts. And all of them collectively are available to the nodal officer, who in turn can assign a particular complaint to that counselor. The counselor concerned can give telecounseling in those circumstances to the victim, and as also, if necessary, to the abuser. And the counselor, after giving telecounseling, he finds that there is still a problem, then the next recourse is to law. And in those circumstances, the legal aid counsel steps in. It is the legal aid counsel who is supposed to then contact the party concerned and ask her as to what she desires, what kind of relief she wants, and then file a petition or an application with immediate effect for urgent relief before the concerned court. We also have a list of the roster of the legal aid panel lawyers, which has been provided to by the Delhi Legal Services Authority to the concerned police station, so that the moment there is a complaint, immediately the lawyer is contacted, and in turn the lawyer can reach out to the victim.
Okay, thank you, madam. And we are all gradually running out of time, and we have a lot many questions coming from the participants as well. Before I go to the participants' question, I'll at least ask the last two questions. So one to Madam Ima Kohli and one to Madam Rekha Sharma, and then I'll straight move on to the participants' questions. Maybe I'll request both of you to extend time by another 10-15 minutes or so, if possible. My question to you, Madam Ima Kohli. This is one of the, you are the legal expert in the panel. One of the questions that most of us have is about the adequacy of laws that we have in our country to protect the women from domestic violence. Whether the remedies provided under the existing law, both under the IPC, we have section 498A of the Indian Penal Code, and the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act of 2005, which is a kind of a comprehensive legislation, otherwise look like. Do you think that these remedies that are provided under the law are adequate to combat the domestic violence in India, even during this period of crisis? Or even if you think that earlier they were working well, and now because of the challenges that now we are facing, are there any inadequacies you think that needs to be remedied?
Speaking for myself, I don't think there are any gaps or inadequacies that need to be bridged as far as legislation is concerned relating to domestic violence. What is really required is strict implementation. And for implementation, the outreach to those who are the victims. That is the underlying requirement, to make them realize that there are statutes, that there are legislations, that there is a legal system in place. Itself is a big challenge. Till they realize it, till they know how to access it, any number of law, any amount of law of legislation will not help. Because let us not forget, a victim of domestic violence will end up knocking at the door of the court as a last resort. The first resort would be that she would need support and succor to maintain her relationship within the family, to keep that going not only for her own sake, for the sake of the children. Many of these women in our society who are financially completely dependent on their husband cannot simply walk out of their homes with their children to go to a shelter home, which is very common in the Western world, and say that they have a safe house. There is nothing like a safe house if she doesn't have the backing of her own family, of her own some very dear and near one who's willing to take her with them, along with the children. And mostly those are the children that wants that woman to that house, however much she may be being abused, assaulted, or being deprived. That is a sad story. So it is those children also, I must say, who become victims of this domestic violence, who are traumatized. Traumatized by who? By none other than their own father, by their own grandparent, by their own uncles, by any male dominant relative in the shared household. and they can't voice it. So the women need as much of counseling as these children. Those houses of domestic abuse need more psychological support to deal with their insecurities and to deal with their latent fears that can really mar them as human beings when they grow up.
So the problem is not with any gaps in the law, it's the real challenge is about implementation. My next question is to Madam Rekha Sharma. Madam, this is one of the important questions that we have. It's about hospitalization issues that we are facing during this period of pandemic. We read in newspapers about hospitals refusing to admit even pregnant women, and many hospitals have turned down the people seeking hospitalization. In these circumstances, it may be more difficult for the victims of domestic violence who have suffered any kind of physical injury to avail medical treatment. What can be done to ensure medical access to the victims of domestic violence during this period of crisis, madam?
Yesterday only I have written a letter to Home Health Minister to provide special ambulance services to these pregnant women. We have also written to him that there should be a separate division in every hospital where they can take care of the pregnant women. My light is gone. Can you?
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you, madam, and
Yeah,
you're also
can hear me.
visible. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, we have written to him that they have to provide beds in every hospital. We have seen many cases of pregnant women going to hospital and were denied services, and we have seen even they have lost life. The women lost life, the child lost life. In this, they were shifting from one hospital to another, shuffling down, and yesterday we saw one case where she was on road for 13 hours without getting any medical help from the hospital. So we have taken these cognizance, suo motu cognizance for pregnant women. And second thing, what we are saying, domestic violence, yes. Nowadays, even when you are getting a health problem like heart attack or something, people are thinking twice to go to the hospital, because every hospital is having COVID cases and people are afraid of catching up. Let me share a sad news that my own chacha, my own uncle lost life today itself in the morning. I'm still sitting here.
Very, very, very sorry to hear that, madam.
Yeah. So he went because of health problem, and he got COVID, and he lost life in the hospital itself. So these things are happening, and we should have special hospitals or special nursing home for women, whether domestic violence cases or the cases of pregnant women. So I have written to the government, let us see what they do, because these health services are, we are having crunch of health services during this period, and we have seen in Delhi, they are almost, the government has almost given up that now it is God will save us, and how many beds are there, they don't know. There's so much problem going on in Delhi itself. In Maharashtra, we have seen the number of cases, the way it is increasing. We have to have different nursing homes or different health services for women, whether we should have more vans which should have all the equipments to take care of women and should be parked on every district. There are one-stop centers, but they have only 5 beds. They are providing health services in that one-stop center also, because all the health one-stop center are located inside a hospital or nearer to the hospital. But again, people are afraid to go to those health services or one-stop centers also, because of COVID. So we are going to suggest to government, and we are suggesting, let's hope so in near future they'll do something.
Thank you, madam. Let me move on to some of the questions that we are getting from the participants. The first question that we are taking is from Mini Srivastava. She's an assistant professor at the Amity University. And her question is to Madam Rekha Sharma. And the question is, what role the other members of the family or the society at large can play in checking the domestic violence? Can the victims also be expected to tolerate domestic violence to some extent to keep the marriage intact?
Let me tell you, the family's role is most important, especially the role of family of the women, the girl, because the way they teach their girl to take all kind of nonsense since childhood. You know, we all tell them that you have to get married. The dream of a girl is always to get married, and that has to be changed to dream of becoming self-sufficient. And unless we make our daughters self-sufficient, not only financially but to take her own decisions, because we have seen even if women is earning her own money, she can't spend on her own without the permission of the husband or the family. So taking her own decision, and that only the parents can make them such strong women. And we need to change the mindset of the family, the parents. And then if the parents mindset change, I think everything will change in the society. And unless we change the mindset of society, any kind of law or even the better implementation of the law will not be changing the scene on the ground. And we should not tell women to take this domestic violence as the second question she asked. Even one slap, if you see the Thappad, that movie, you know how she says if one slap changes her the whole life. Even one slap she should not take, because that gives way to men that he can get away with any kind of violence. And we should be very very stern that anything happens you can talk. There are problems in the families, you can talk across the table. When two nations can solve their problems sitting across the table, why can't in a family can change the situation by talking it out, not shouting out. So talking in the family and telling them, we have seen in educated families, they just sit there and talk out the problem. But in most of the cases, this thing is not happening, and we need to change that.
Thank you, madam. I think we are last connection with Madam Ima Kohli. She's trying to connect with us again. Meanwhile, I'll move on to the next question to Madam Rekha Sharma only. Madam, there are certain issues, particularly during this period of lockdown. Even if a woman faces domestic violence, cannot even move out of the house and then go to the parents' house or elsewhere. This is a crisis situation that we have. In these circumstances, do you think setting up of shelter homes to accommodate victims of domestic violence during the period of pandemic is somewhat feasible or desirable? If not, what is the better way to ensure that the victims are not confined with the abusers during the period of lockdown in the same household?
There are shelter homes, let me tell you. There are, even in one stop center, there are 5 beds for 5 women. There are Swadhar Grahs across nation, but the services of Swadhar Grah is not up to the mark. And I have visited almost in all the states these Swadhar Grahs, and given recommendations, we have come up with the long list of recommendations to the government that we need to change the way Swadhar Grahs are working. These are funded by the center government and state government jointly, and taken care by the NGOs. So many a times we have seen that the list of Swadhar Grahs is not matching with the states what are on the ground. The NGOs are showing different names who women are there. They are doing all kinds of corruption in these Swadhar Grahs, and these NGOs need to be taken into task. And we have given list of NGOs which should be blacklisted, because these Swadhar Grahs are not being run properly. And we need to change the system of Swadhar Grahs. That is, Swadhar Grahs are there on the ground, they are existing, but how they should be run, that we need to change.
Thank you, madam. Fortunately, we got Madam Ima Kohli back. Madam, I have a question for you.
there has been a major power breakdown in this area because of the dust storm and the rains.
Okay, fine, madam. Sorry, I did not even know it was your number. I could not take the call immediately. I'm really sorry, madam.
That's
And
why I'm
I
also
have the
sitting with the torch.
okay,
Yes, I
okay.
see that.
Yes, madam. Thank you. Madam, the next question is to you, Madam Ima Kohli. This is from one of the participant, Sandeep Srivastava, who's an LLM student from the University of Allahabad. His question is this: under the Domestic Violence Act, the remedy is not quick. What steps can be taken to ensure faster remedy? Madam, shall I repeat the question? Hello.
Yes, if you don't mind, what steps are to be taken because DV Act is slow? This is the question, right?
Yeah. That's the question, madam.
No, it's well, when it comes to immediate relief, there are protection officers that can intervene. So it is not as if protection officers are powerless and they can't intervene. But if the person thinks that the concerned court is not acted despite due urgency, then there's always the appellate court that concerned person can go to. I know it sounds easy for me to say, but fact of the matter is that there is a law. It has to be followed. But for urgency, there is no harm if the person concerned approaches, if they think there is an urgency, by filing an application before the very same court or before the appellate court, highlighting the urgency. When it comes to such like situations which are emergent, just as we do it under the Family Court Act also, if there are urgencies, even in the lockdown period, the family courts are trying to address those kind of urgencies, and so is the High Court in that the same analogy will apply there also, Professor.
Okay. Thank you, madam. And also about like possibility of getting interim reliefs from the court during the pendency of the case can also resolve these issues of general delay that is caused in the courts of law, I guess. Madam, my next question is also somewhat connected to it, and of course it is somewhat larger too. It is to you, Madam Ima Kohli. That what roles the courts can play during this period to tackle the problem of pandemic. As you know, Delhi High Court has entertained a public interest litigation. How does courts intervention actually help? Can you brief us about what exactly the Delhi High Court or for that matter, Jammu and Kashmir High Court did?
I can, particularly on the domestic violence aspect. You see, within the month, within the middle of April itself, both the Jammu and Kashmir High Court and the Delhi High Court had acted on petitions. Jammu and Kashmir High Court on a suo motu petition, and the Delhi High Court on a petition moved before the Chief Justice's bench, and where the issue raised was with regard to domestic violence and how to reach out to the victims of domestic violence. As soon as we, as DLSA, came to know about it, as you know, I'm wearing two hats. So when it comes to DLSA, a request was made to the member secretary to immediately intervene in that petition, point out what all we had done, and participate in the petition so that anything else we could do could also be brought to the fore. And thereafter, after hearing all the parties, the Ministry of Women and Child Development, the Delhi Commission for Women, etc., and taking their affidavits on record, the court has passed a detailed order in this regard not too long ago. This was, I think, on 24th of April, for ensuring that the victims of the domestic violence get a proper response. And those suggestions that were made by the petitioner relating to more number of protection officers, wider publicity through electronic media, emergency passes for protection officers, which we, DLSA, helped in obtaining for them, and immediate action on receiving a complaint could be adequately addressed. So that was one. Another one that, it is a matter of chance, it came before me as a PIN, was with regard to another NGO which was working for women and said that pregnant women during the lockdown are not able to access hospitals, etc. In that case also, directions were passed by a bench that I had headed, where the Delhi government was told to make sure that there is not only conveyance as in echo vans, but there are also an Anganwadi worker or a nurse who can accompany her, the lady, to the hospital and back, because transport was a major issue at that time, and make sure that all her needs are met. And after the pregnancy, when the baby is delivered, to bring them back to their own home. Things and measures that were directed to be implemented in that PIL. We are at this point in time flooded with PILs, some of them genuine, bona fide, and have a cause which is espoused on which we can address arguments and address orders, and after hearing arguments, and others which are a little frivolous, if I may say so. And we can do well without, because working in pandemic times through video conferencing hearings in court itself is quite a challenge, and we are trying to do as best as we can within the constraints of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, thank you, madam. And the next question is from Pramila Sharma. And our question, perhaps both of you can actually answer, madam, because both the organizations involve NGOs. And our question is the role of NGOs with domestic violence issues. What are the ways in which NGOs can be involved during this period of crisis?
I'll request Ms. Sharma to answer that.
Yeah, fine, madam, fine.
So I have seen during the COVID-19, these NGOs were reaching out personally because they have wide network in the society. In different districts, different NGOs are working, and sometimes the branches of the same NGOs are in different districts, and they were reaching out to the victim personally. They were reaching out, like they were going from door to door when these things were happening, if need be, or if we were forwarding some kind of cases, they were reaching out personally to these people. They were also having counseling sessions online. They were having webinars online where I have seen many in many NGOs, they were even inviting me to talk on these webinars or in this Facebook Live, where women, because I have seen on Facebook, many women are there, even from all start of life, women on the Facebook are there, and they were like thousands of women were seeing all those programs on Facebook Live for the awareness programs. So these NGOs really played a big role in during close down, and now when they have started working, they are continuing working in this field. They were also not aware that they could work so nicely, so beautifully, and they could help and reach out to the victim. But now when they know about their own capabilities, they are expanding their work, and they are continuing working on that field.
Thank you. The next question is perhaps on the one of the participant, Raghav. I don't know where is he from. He's asking this question. It is about the gender specificity of the DV Act. He says DV Act is a social justice act, but the premise seems men cannot ever be the victims of domestic violence. And there have been instances of DV Act being used for denying fathers the visitation rights of the child. It is about the Domestic Violence Act. Like most of our laws relating to women are gender-specific legislation, unlike in some of the advanced countries where they have gender-neutral laws. Yes, ma'am.
In our society, we haven't reached a point where men need protection from women. Today, and in the current scenario, and for decades together, it is the women who has been the victim. When the time is right, where women have the upper hand and the men became victims, surely the legislature and the executive will take note of it and make the laws which are protecting men. In the current scenario, as we stand today, there can be no doubt that women largely are the victims. I am not saying that there is no misuse of the provisions of law, but that is true across the board. And because there is a misuse, can't be a ground to trash the law. It's only a question of making sure that you nip in the bud as far as possible the misuse by throwing out petitions which are not based on correct facts, which is an abuse of the process, as we call it. But that is not to say that it is a bias towards women that has created gender-specific legislations. Women in today's time in our country need it, and that is why it has been thought fit by the legislator to enact these legislations. That would be my response.
Yeah, that is absolutely true, madam. Even perhaps I recollect when the Criminal Law Amendment Ordinance was introduced somewhere in 2013, they made some of the offences gender neutral, and then immediately they realized that in India, making these laws gender neutral may not work, and a subsequent law that was passed by the parliament made it again gender specific. That's an absolutely correct position, madam. The next question that we have is from Pramila Sharma, who is an advocate, senior advocate, secretary of Jagshanti something Foundation. Our question is, if the administration, if the police is reluctant to receive the complaints from any victims of domestic violence, what can be done in such cases, particularly during this period of crisis?
Sharma.
Approach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, as I told you, the domestic violence number are one, what we receive the complaints. The police apathy is the second number. The number of category which we receive, because we have seen that the mindset of police, as we said, that the law is being misused also, but not the way police think, and they have that mindset that any women walking to them for the help is is giving a false case, and that's how they treat a woman. The time she enters the police station.
Which one have you sent me? Yes, madam. Please go on, madam.
Yeah. So the moment she walks in, they think that whatever she is saying is wrong, and that's how they treat a woman. And that's the police apathy is there on the ground. And when they come to us, in fact, we in NCW, we summon police most of the time. We summon with the victim, and we take up, and even we go to different districts for Mahila Jan Sunwai, where we call these victims and police face to face, and we listen to both the parties and take this decision, and we give our directions to the police to work on these cases. And as you said, yes, the police apathy is there, not only in domestic violence cases, in many serious cases also. When you see the rape victims go to the police, how they treat them, again I will say, yes, there is misuse in this also, but not as police think that every case. If you see that movie Pink, I'm giving example of many movies, because I tell police in many places when we do these gender sensitization program with the police, and we are having this regularly with all over the states. We are having these gender sensitization programs. We tell them to watch this movie, because there they have shown that how police behaves with the victim, and how they think. They have these preconceived notions. If a woman is wearing some kind of clothes, or if she is going to the bar and she maybe she got raped there, they will say that she is the one who invited all these things. They think that she wanted this thing. So again, I will say that these police officers or these police personals are also part of the society which has got this notion about the woman, and they know, they think that we can treat a woman as they want to and as they wish to, and that's how they carry these notions to the police headquarters and police offices also. So we need to change society's mindset, so that the people who are coming to the police services, they should have also a better this thing. And we in last question also, when you say that we have different laws for women and gender specific laws, we need this, and we are also working towards gender equality. When that thing happens, we don't want those laws, but till we get that gender equality in the society, we really want those laws. And even being an NCW chairperson, I am getting trolled by men on the Twitter that how can you only talk about women and their, the laws of to help women? Why can't you see men get beaten up by their wives? So these are very few cases. I think maybe you can count on your fingers those kind of cases. We can't change the whole law on those handful of cases.
For in-laws and sister-in-laws during this period of pandemic, and some of them are saying that probably they don't actually get a relief. It is not actually addressed in. Many say that even NCW is not actually helping us. Sometimes they say it is not within our mandate. I don't know how it's true, because even Domestic Violence Act speaks in general about women in domestic relationship. I don't think it is confined to any particular woman as such. But these are some of the questions. There are too many. We are flooded with many questions actually.
Yeah, this is absolutely wrong that we don't listen to the mother-in-law, or in many cases
I
we help
understand.
mother-in-law. We in many cases we help, and in fact we call both the parties. We listen both the parties. If mother-in-law is complaining to us against daughter-in-law, we listen to them. We help them. In fact, we go out and complain against the daughter-in-law. It is not, and people are saying that it is not, and it is only the commission for daughter-in-laws, and that is not the truth. Because of these few people who have made men's right, they are talking about men's right and all. They are the one who are trolling me day and night, and during
Yeah,
the
it's
lockdown
understandable.
during the
Yes, ma'am.
lockdown, I think they had lot of time to do this trolling,
True.
and
Unfortunate.
I was also victim
Yes.
of troll.
Yes, madam. Thank you, madam. Madam, there are like too many questions. Of course, there are 104 questions that I see on screen. We
You
can't
can
ask all
send
of
me
them.
an
Yes, madam.
yeah,
I will ask one last question, madam, before winding up. Then I'll request both of you to give your final comments. So this question is from the additional director of the Delhi Judicial Academy, and this is addressed to you, Madam Rekha Sharma. He is talking about intersectionalization of violence during the lockdown. His question is, since children, especially females, were also victims of abuse during the lockdown, does NCW have coordination with the CWC and NCPCR?
yes, of course. We are in very good coordination with NCPCR, and sometimes when we receive complaints from children or about children, we forward it to them, and we ask for action taken report also. And we are in touch continuously. Like NCPCR chairperson and me, we are in touch with on phone, and regularly we are talking about few cases. They also forward us few cases where they received about women, also forward them.
Okay. Thank you, madam. Now, I request Madam Ima Kohli to give her final remarks, if any.
I don't think there are any remarks really. This was more in the nature of a discussion. And I hope to some extent we have been able to throw light on what all the Delhi Legal Services Authority has been able to do in these pandemic times for domestic violence victims. I am not discussing the legal aspect of it, but only the way one is trying to reach out to those victims as quick as is possible in today's time. Not that merely because the lockdown has been relaxed, then and the COVID pandemic hasn't gone down, that the cases of domestic violence would reduce. They may increase because the stark reality is that many people are still homeless. Many people are still not getting 2 meals in a day. There are several who are without any employment. Things will get tougher and harder towards on the economic side. When it is true for the country, it is true for its citizens too. And we all will have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. I can only hope and pray that we are able to look at other options as to how to reach out more to those women suffering from domestic violence. Thank you for giving me this opportunity and on this platform. And thank you for asking the relevant questions, which I could answer as to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. And before we move on to the formal vote of thanks, I'll request Madam Rekha Sharma to give her final comments.
Thank you, Puneet, for giving this opportunity and reaching out to the people, sharing our experience during the lockdown. This experience was not good, but our work, we also know that how much work we can do. Even the capability of NCW, it was people talked about how much work we did. We could reach to the people. Before the lockdown, we didn't know this is the first time this kind of thing happening in our lifetime. And yes, we were women, and there are, and especially the way it worked online, uh, the transformation happened very quickly, and adaptation, people adapted to it very nicely. Even my office, the way it worked, I must say that I appreciated my whole team in this thing, whether it is working for elderly or for domestic violence cases or other cases also. Preparing advisories to government or reaching out to women, every kind of thing. But yes, we need to work out, and we need to reach out to the society, and especially to the lower strata. As you said, we were not being able to help them as we wanted to, and we want, and we are working towards how we can reach out during the lockdown, because I don't think in near future it is going to open up, or we will be able to physically reach out to them. But we are finding our ways, we are searching our ways how we can go there and make them aware what are their rights, how they can reach out to police. So yes, we will learn, and I think inshallah we will learn better.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. I wholeheartedly thank both of you for your views and perspectives and sharing your experiences as heads of the organizations. And it is kind of reassuring that our institutions are actually not falling behind during this crisis period. They're making every effort to reach out to the victims of domestic violence. We hope that this issue is taken care of. We hope that the humanity prevails, actually sanity comes, people start understanding the real crisis and that we have, and which should actually make us behave more sensibly, as I said in the beginning. I thank you both on my behalf, and I now request Ms. Shreya Mittal to propose a formal vote of thanks. Thank you very much, madam. Shreya, it is over to you now.
Thank you, sir, and good evening, everyone. I'm glad to have an opportunity to propose the vote of thanks upon the completion of such a meaningful webinar. I'm honored to thank Honorable Justice Hema Kohli, Judge, Delhi High Court, for her nuanced and experienced insights. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation. It is to my immense pleasure to thank Srimati Rekha Sharma, Chairperson, National Commission for Women, for a comprehensive, fact-based analysis to help us understand the gravity of the issue. We thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation. I'm humbled to thank Professor Dr. Manoj Kumar Sinha, Director, Indian Law Institute, and Dr. Anurag Deep, Associate Professor, Indian Law Institute, for their continuous guidance and support that keeps us motivated throughout. I thank Mr. Vishal Gogne, Additional Director, Delhi Judicial Academy, for his gracious presence. I would also like to thank Mr. Senior Manager, who was with us throughout the session to extend his technical support. We would like to express our gratitude to the organizing committee for extending all support. Once again, thank you all, and we are looking forward to our next webinar on COVID-19 and Right to Health, convened by ILEA on June 17th, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you.